Hey everyone, so I'm gonna try and squeeze as much as I can into this video because it does take a while to explain it to. So let me just create a new Android Studio project. So select empty activity. Just for the simplest, easiest thing to start with, and name the application what you want, etc. And select Java as a language, and then you can just leave the defaults as they are. It does take a little while to create a project and initialize everything, but in the meantime, this video is intended to be the quickest and most bite-sized introduction to Android Studio possible. It's not really meant to teach you how to develop Android apps. However, it is intended to help you get around some common hurdles which everybody, including myself, struggled with when starting out with Android Studio. So and this particularly focuses on issues with alignment and margins and apps not fitting the various screens consistently. So for example, you have the Samsung Galaxy A series phones, and then you have the what's the word now, the J series, and various phones which have different proportions. Then some screens are longer, like the A series, the latest A series especially. So these differences in aspect ratio can make things tricky, and of course screen resolutions vary quite a bit. So I'm going to use the modern constraint layout that Google recommends in the official Android documentation. And let me just show you where you can confirm whether an app is using the constraint layout, because this is important if you're developing an app, especially if you're decided to work on a slightly older app or something like that. The older app might have a different type of layout, such as relative layout. So just go over to the top right corner of your screen there and then click code. But that's design, that's the perspective that we're in now, right? So you click code to view the XML for the activity, right? So the activity is an activity is essentially a screen, right? It's kind of like a window, but not quite, since Android doesn't really work like Windows. But anyway, way it works is similar to a window. So you have the visual designer, which is drag and drop. You can drag things onto it. Let me just see if I can. And then you can switch to the XML perspective by clicking code there, right? So wait, constraint layout right there. Good. So I found the constraint layout fairly easy to use because Google's obviously trying to help resolve make it easier then to align all the widgets in your apps properly. So for example, this is a text view, right? So it's just a simple, it looks very similar to the older designs, except these lines here. So you have app layout constraint bottom to bottom up, for example. So this tells it helps it to identify where the widgets are supposed to be on the screen. So I'm not going to get into the XML side of that though. What I'm going to do instead is show you a very easy and convenient way to ensure that the widgets that you put on the screen stay where they're supposed to be, and that they scale so that whether it's a 10-inch tablet you're using, or you're using a tiny phone, or a Galaxy Note, or a budget phone, it's going to look perfect on all of them because it will simply scale automatically. So for example, so just click on this example widget which was included by default here. This is a text view with hello world written in it. So I'm not sure if you can see clearly these blue zigzag lines, they are constraints, right? So if you look over to the right of this screen, you're seeing constraint widget, right? So yeah, so what that means is that you are able to set constraints that will dictate where the widget is supposed to be on the screen. So this text view widget here has constraints set to I'm not sure how clearly you can see them where the mouse is here. So look on the constraint widget, and then when you see vertical bias, horizontal bias, they're all halfway, so that it will center the widget in the screen. So what that does is it tells the app that it's supposed to be right there in the center. So no matter what you do, it always ensures that it stays in the center of the screen. Right. So well, let me not delete that just yet, but let's say that I wanted to just shift it down a little bit, right? See, moving down there, so that's the vertical bias. So setting it to 50 puts it in the middle of the screen, and basically for the horizontal bias, it does the same thing, just horizontally, right? So you just set it to, let me just nudge it down to 50 there, so it is properly centered, right? So since Google already did this for you in this example, I'm going to create something else, an EditText. I'm going to select that plain text. So the EditText is just a text field, so which you can type letters or numbers or whatever independent configuration. So you can drag that onto your screen. You can drag it wherever you want for now. Don't worry about resizing just yet. But anyway, so you don't have to do it just like this. I mean, you can size it to whatever you want. However, I do like to use constraints and then make it fill the screen vertically at least, so so you can utilize the screen space, whatever screen space is available. So just click on the round on the circle there, and then drag it over like that, so it has now snapped the edit text to the left side of the screen. Right, so there's no constraint for the top, bottom, or right side of it yet. So I'm going to drag the circle on the right side now, to the right side of the screen. So just be careful about that. Drag until you see these little zigzag lines, and then so it's now centered. And as you can see there, the horizontal bias is now set to 50. You also have additional constraint settings you have here, which they will come in handy actually. Margins, I tend to set margins anyway. Sometimes I'm gonna show you that soon. Sometimes I even use them instead of the horizontal and vertical bias. But anyway, so right, so now I'm going to drag this top circle to the top of the screen, because I want the text box, this text field, to stick to the top of the screen, and then but of course I don't want it right up against the top of the screen, because it just doesn't look good. Apps always have a bit of a margin, sometimes it's called padding, but there should be a little bit of space above that edit text field, right? So by the way, there's an ID. That's what your text field is called in your code, whether it's in Java or in XML. And I'm just before I forget to mention it, clarify it. The XML is for the visual aspect of your app, meaning the layout of your activity, and the Java is a code that you use to do everything else programmatically. So you program the app with Java or Kotlin optionally, and then in the XML you just define how your app looks. Right, so right, so I'm going to set a margin here now. So let's just start with 8. Right, so 8. So I'm not sure if you can see that properly, that little 8 over there. So there's a tiny space up there. So 8, I don't think that's quite enough in this case, especially not for our text fields. Let me just increase the margin to the top margin to 16, and yeah, that's better, right? Okay. So one thing we forgot to do here is to drag the bottom circle now to snap it to the bottom of the screen, right? So this defines where exactly on the screen is supposed to be. So what you're seeing here now is I have moved the widget to, but for some strange reason the margin isn't there anymore, right? And it's still quite a way down from the top of the screen. So how did that happen? Well, you do have the option to drag it around wherever you want to, and then it will use the vertical bias here. Oops, sorry. So the vertical bias is the reason, is what I just set by dragging it down a while ago. So as you can see, moving with the vertical bias there. In some scenarios, if you run into problems, you might want to set the vertical bias to 0, and then to set your margin to exactly what you need. You can set it to 16. I'm not sure how 24. Okay, 24 actually looks good too, right? So top margin is 24. If you want to see it in the code, so here's the edit text here. This is it, right? So layout. So this is what we just set in the designer. The IDE wrote it in the code for you. So Android layout margin top 24 dp, right? So and we set a vertical bias to 0, right? As I saw a while ago. And then so the next thing that I'm going to show you is what I had mentioned earlier, which I like to do, which is to make the text field fill the screen. So here's a layout width which is set to wrap content, which means that it will expand based on what you type in the text field. So while that obviously sounds ideal and it might be a good idea in some cases, it does cost you control over where it ends up on the screen, where other widgets might end up on the screen, because the widgets may move relative to each other. So I found that if you set it to wrap content and then someone types in something that's too long, a bit long for that text field, and or they press enter or something while they type in to create a new line, and it expands and moves down and it starts pushing other things down, and then things start shifting into places that they shouldn't be. What you can do instead, especially if it's not something that isn't too, that if nothing long is going to be typed in text field, you can set the layout width parameter over here. So match parent, match underscore parent. Okay. Do you see that it has now stretched the horizontally stretched out the edit text field to fill the screen, right? So now we have a little problem, a lack of a margin. So the simple solution to that is to set the left margin, or Android layout margin left. So I will set that to 16. Yeah, I think that will do. Give me 10 of space and then set margin right to 16, so it's consistent. And then Alright, so you see that was fairly simple, so it's gonna stay that way. So even if and across several different screens, it's actually gonna stay that way, and it's not gonna do mysterious things that you didn't intend. Also, what else now? So there's a text attribute. As I said, I can't cover everything. This is meant to be the quickest possible introduction, just to cover certain issues that people tend to struggle with when they're starting out with Android, especially visually. So common attributes here. So here's the text. So generally I don't want any hard-coded strings in there, and well, I rarely ever see apps like that, because it's going to look like someone already typed something in there for you, and it doesn't really make sense. So let's just clear that text field, right? You can set a hint if you like. Set a hint field here. So let's just say test hint. That could be name, right? So by the way, avoid hard coding that, but I'm not gonna cover that in this video, unfortunately. Hold on. Test hint, right? But the IDE will warn you about not using hard-coded strings in anything in the app, because if you do that, that makes it harder to translate the app, right? Because apparently there are translation services. I think Google has them, which can actually translate the text inside the app. But anyway, aside from that, right? So let me just quickly show you the string, man. So strings.xml. There we go. String name. It's gonna do a quick one. Let's just say name field. Fine. String. Enter your name. Fine. Good. Save that. That is strings.xml. And now in hint, to do it the correct way that Google recommends is to type @strings / the name that you give the string, right? So what was it thinking? Oh, so it's name field, right? So name field, there it is. Double click, right, there you go. So it will be grayed out a little bit, so the user will see that it's a hint and not a placeholder. Right, good. And when the user goes to type something in there, they won't actually have to delete the enter your name. It will just disappear automatically, like you see in most apps. So I think the next thing I want to do is Mebit Adder. So the exact same thing applies to buttons and text views. If you decided that you wanted to drag a button onto this app, so just click buttons and then click button, and then you can drag it over here, right? So do the same thing with the constraints. Right, you can do that. You could have also dragged it to snap it to the bottom of the EditText, but that may have its advantages and could have its disadvantages as well. If you do that, then the position of the EditText will affect the position of the button itself, and the button could be pushed down by the EditText, especially if wrap content was enabled. So right, so I'm just doing the same thing here, dragging from that, clicking the circle, dragging down, dragging up to set the vertical bias and to tell it that I want the button to be in a certain place. So obviously I don't want it that far down in this case. Let's just keep this up simple, right? It's not actually gonna do anything. I'm just showing you some helpful design tips here. Alright, so drag it to the left, drag it to the right, and Okay, so here's the thing now. This so this is a vertical bias, so 16 at the moment. So I think I'm gonna avoid that right now. I tend to have the least issues, and I've tested this on many devices too. I tend to have the least issues if I set my vertical bias to 0, and then I just set a margin for something like this. Of course, it's not the most convenient way to go, and it's not necessarily the best for everything, but sometimes it does work out quite well. So let's just change the text on the button here now to text. So let's consider this an introduction to a basic introduction to UI design in Android, I guess. So button text, I don't know. Alright, let's just say okay. Android string, okay. Oh yeah, I didn't even know that string was there. Anyway, okay, so so this button should stay put where it's supposed to be, no matter what screen it's on. Okay, so right. Anyways, edit text. Another thing I like to ensure of, for the sake of readability of the code, is to ensure that I name all the widgets. So this ID's default name is EditText. So let me just do something like, what's the word now? Text box name or something like that, and the name of that widget is now text box name. So that's what I use to reference it and manipulate it in the code. So you can do the same with the button if you want to, especially if you have many widgets in your app. You don't want to be scrolling through the code and then you say edit text 1, edit text 2, button 1, button 2, button 3, and then you can't remember exactly what each of them does. So let's just say okay button. Alright, if there's a cancel button, you could call it cancel button. Right, so right, the next thing now is, let's just take another quick look in the code. So you just go over to the top right corner of the screen where these 3 little buttons are, and then click code to go to the code perspective, and then these edit text ID Android :ID text box name. You can change the name in here as well, although it's easier to do it in the design perspective that we're just in. Right, so where the hint is set here, right? String / name field. You can also set that in the code, XML code here. So yes, and the same applies to the button. You notice how everything is each widget is a little code block in an XML file. It's actually very simple and easy to work with. Android has been like this for a long time, but yeah, this aspect of it is actually very straightforward and convenient in some ways. Has its benefits, and of course, if you want to create a new project, right? You can just copy these out, to scavenge your widgets and their settings and copy them into a different app. I actually did that the other day. Then this makes that very easy. Right, so let me just hurry along here. Right, so what do I do first now? Okay, so I'm opening the Java file now, right? So let's say that I wanted to make that button do something if I click it. So I'm not going to try to test the app. Right now I'm just going to show you real quick. Public void what's the word? Let's just call it save name then, even though it's not actually going to save it, because I'm not going to put the code to save the name in it. Right, so I'm going to make the button call this function here when I click it. So public void safe name, so you're going to need to declare a view in as a parameter here. So let's hop over, can I resolve view. So when it's highlighted red like that and it says can I resolve symbol view, you can click import class or press alt enter and then it will import it automatically for you. Android Studio is very convenient in that way. So here it is, it added this line of code, right? It's highlighting it further, right? So you can just put whatever you want the button to do in that little section there, right? So now to make the button call this function or this void is to, you can go into the XML file button and then you can type Android on click and then type in the function name, which would be save name, right? So it can, so it already detected it in their activities Java file, right? Good. One thing I want to point out is that each activity has a corresponding XML file and a Java file. So this app only has one activity called main activity, right? So you see main activity.java, activity main.xml. When you create multiple screens, like if you decide that you want to you want to bring up a different screen in an app, like a settings screen, or just a different screen that shows you totally different set of widgets, then you would create a new activity and it would have its own XML file as well as its own corresponding Java file. So just remember that for the future. Right, so getting a button to do something really is that simple. Just Android on click function name. Right, so when you click the OK button, that function is executed. Okay, so next, I'm just wondering. Oh, I guess I think I just delete the hello world now. Good. It's getting a little annoying anyway. Right, so you don't have to do that. Right, so I'm hoping I'm not forgetting anything. And as I said, this is meant to be the most bite-sized introduction possible, not a full tutorial. So I'm hoping that you find this helpful, and if you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.